Hey, 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 hey. Hey, lovelies, how are you? Welcome back to another episode. I hope you've been doing really great. I have been doing well. I think the summer is gradually coming to an end. It's been pouring and raining all day. I woke up this morning and I said, it would be really biased to always talk about like the pros and the wonderful things about practicing medicine and not talk about the struggles and the challenges. So today I will be telling you all about the challenges I face as a foreign doctor, a female doctor, an African doctor working in Germany. One of the major challenges is before I open my mouth, before I introduce myself, people have already looked at me and given me a job description. Let me tell you a story. So a few weeks ago, right, I was doing the morning rounds. I think it was a Monday. There were lots of new patients and I was doing the morning rounds. I stepped into this room and as soon as I walked in, my phone rang. So I picked up the phone and while I was in the call, there were three ladies in the room. I could hear what they were saying. They weren't so loud, but I still could hear what they were saying. So I was talking on the phone and one of them says to the other, who could that be? And then the other one says, oh, she's definitely here to take orders for our food. My goodness, I heard it and I was just like, I didn't feel offended for some reason. I was just like, I'm about to see the expression on your faces as soon as I introduce myself. So I finished up the call. I walked nicely and happily to them. I introduced myself and I said, I'm one of the doctors in charge of the station. There was, you would think they were almost jumping out of their beds. And the one who had said, I'm definitely here to order their food was like, oh, um, so they didn't need to say, oh, sorry, because they thought I didn't hear them and I heard them loud and clear. And she's like, oh, lost for words. They were all lost for words. And I just asked, how are you doing? And we went on from there. There was this other time, like the stories are endless. I'm not kidding you. At the beginning, it was quite annoying. I used to say, my goodness, is this what I have to deal with every day? But I think now it has happened so often that it just it doesn't move me anymore. There was this other day, still doing the morning rounds, because at the morning rounds is where you see all the patients who were admitted during the night or the previous day. And I stepped into this room. The lady was on a call. So I think it was the last room on the station. I had finished from the beginning and this was the last room for me. So I stepped in. She was on a call and laughing, ha 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 ha. Nothing serious. She wasn't saying anything serious. I'm not kidding. And I just stood there because I couldn't go back. I had something else to do after now. I didn't want to go back and then come back in. So I waited. I'm like, okay, Lucy, breathe in and out, chill. So after she's like, oh, there's someone here. Let me call you back. So I looked at her and I said, good morning. She just looked at me in like, oh, like, what can I possibly do for you? That kind of attitude. And I had to repeat like, good morning, good morning. And she's like, oh, good morning. So I introduced myself, as the doctor in charge of the station. And she froze, It was so visible. She froze and she's like, oh. So I'm like, at this point, you're tempted not to even ask them how they are doing. But I'm like, no, Lucy, this is your job. It doesn't matter what the other person's reaction is. You have to be nice and treat them well. So I asked how she was doing. She said she was okay, and she gave her complaints and everything. And I told her, okay, we will do these tests today. I told her what tests we'll do, and we'll check her medications to see if they are okay. And if everything goes well, day after tomorrow, she should be out of here. And she was like, oh. So as I turned to leave, she says, excuse me, I am so sorry. When you stepped in, I thought the doctor was coming behind you. That's why I kept talking on the phone. If I had known you were the doctor, I would have ended the call immediately. At this point, I'm like, so I told her it's no problem and I left. But as I left, I thought to myself, like everyone deserves to be treated with respect. It doesn't matter if I'm the doctor, the nurse, the cleaner, the waitress, as most people think I am. You know, like everyone should be treated with the same level of respect. We are first human beings before anything else. But yeah, I let it go. And then there are times where um, you would come, maybe I'm in the emergency unit, they bring in a patient, I go in, I introduce myself as a doctor on call, and then they tell me their complaints. I tell them what medications I'll give to them. I'll wait for the labs. If it's okay, I'll discharge them. If not, I'll have to admit them, you know. And then sometimes as you're leaving, I had said this this story on Frau Chi's channel, if you follow her. And as I turned to leave, they're like, oh, excuse me, when is the doctor coming? It's 2 a.m. Darling, what doctor? What doctor? I just told you I'm the doctor on call. What doctor again? What? So sometimes it gets really, really annoying, you know? And sometimes being a female, I think two calls ago, when I was on call, two weeks or so ago, there was a young man who came in. I think he was triaged like wrongly. He didn't speak very good German, but he speaks English. So he came in and was complaining of, they triaged him as abdominal pain, you know, lower abdominal pain. But when I got to him and I asked for the pain and everything, he said the pain wasn't in his abdominal region, it was around his scrotum. So I called the urologist immediately. She came. The urologist is also a young female like myself, and she brought out the ultrasound, you know, to just check up on him and to see. And this guy wouldn't let us examine him, and he was in real pain. I'm just like, we are doctors, we are not, I don't know what the word is, you know, but because we were females, he wasn't comfortable. I understand that, but we couldn't force him, you know, so we had to send him back home, because without an examination, what did he expect us to do? I could go on from now until tomorrow, one story after the other. There was once a man had even asked me if I was a licensed doctor. I'm just like, at this point, I don't know what to do with you. So yeah, you get all these like stereotypical people who would judge you, who would, before you even open your mouth to say a word. So that's like one of the major challenges I go through every day. And there are times when I do the morning rounds, and then maybe towards noon, the nurses come and say, oh Lucy, this patient says she hasn't seen a doctor today. I'm just like, what? I spoke extensively to her this morning, you know. And I go back there and I said hi, and as soon as I step into the room, they're like, hi nurse. I'm like, I'm not the nurse, I have no problem with being the nurse, but if you're looking for a doctor, I came here this morning and I told you I am the doctor in charge of you and the station. So and then I ask, oh, and I introduce myself again and I say, I'm the doctor in charge of the station and of this room. You said you haven't seen a doctor today? And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't know you were the doctor. I'm like, but I told you this morning. Is there something else you would like to discuss we haven't discussed today? And most times they would say no. I'm like, okay, if you need me, I'll be here until 6 or until 4 p.m. I know practicing medicine is already stressful, it doesn't matter where. But practicing in a foreign language, in a foreign country, is on a different level, I think. Another challenge I would say is the language. My German is not perfect. Sometimes people mispronounce my surname and I correct them with love. But sometimes when you mispronounce people's name, like the Germans, they get so, like, they almost feel like, as a doctor, why should you mispronounce a word or something? And there are times when in the middle of a conversation you're searching for like a word, and sometimes they get really like, they would look down on you. Meanwhile, they speak just one language. And I'm like, I speak, do you know how many languages I speak? So if you're going to get angry that I'm not pronouncing your name right, do it with some kind of dignity, you know? But yeah, I have some patients, when they see me, they're like, oh my goodness, she's here. And you know, they start telling everyone, oh, she's the doctor. And they just love you so much, even without knowing you so well. So it's a mixed world. You find those who love you from the bottom of their hearts and are appreciative of what you're doing and the language, your language skills. And sometimes they tell me, I don't think I could ever learn a different language and move to a different country. Like, I don't think I would survive, you know. So they see you as being courageous, they see you as, you know, an achiever, and they praise you and tell you how much that means to them. And there are those who will try to bring you down. Regardless, they are never satisfied. So yeah, that's another challenge I face every now and then. The third one, I think most doctors will relate to this, is the mental energy and the mental impact medicine has on me. There are days when I wake up, right? I'm so happy. You have those days when you wake up, you're so happy, you want to conquer the world, you know, and then you get to work. And the first thing they tell you, oh, a patient has died. And I have to go examine the bodies. I have to call the families and to relate the news to them. I think that can be really draining. You go back home and you're still thinking of this person, you know, and you're thinking of situations, of things that happened at work. There are times when a patient comes in for cough or for something like for fever that is not going away, and then somehow you find out that they have cancer that has, you know, advanced. Maybe they didn't have like strong symptoms at that point, or they had ignored it, and you have to tell them. And you know, some of them break down, they wail, they cry. That's a lot of unconscious energy that we suck in daily, and I think it requires a lot of mental efforts and conscious efforts, you know, to not let those things affect you, to also just go home and leave hospital behind and deal with your personal life like outside the hospital, and just compartmentalize these areas of your life. I used to feel I was always working, like mentally. Even when I was not at work, I always felt I was working. My brain is always just waking up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, oh my goodness, did I do this? Did I do that? You know, and you can't wait to get to the hospital. You're not sleeping properly because you feel you forgot something necessary or important. So that happens a lot. I remember I used to complain at the beginning, and one of the senior doctors was like, Lucy, look, it never stops. It still happens to me after 20-25 years of medical practice, but it does reduce with time, and I agree, because that has reduced drastically. And these days, before leaving work, I make sure like I go through each patient just to make sure I have my to-do list all checked out and in place. That way I can go home and sleep properly. Doctors, if you need healthcare workers, if you need mental therapy, please take it seriously. I know a lot of doctors that are depressed, and I know many people would say, oh, doctors are really depressed or are depressed people. There's a lot that is always going on, which is usually not good news. It's not an easy job. It is not. Sometimes some people play it down, but it is not. It requires a lot of mental and physical energy. Make sure you release those negative energy and unconscious energy that you suck up daily. Another part is the physical impact. I don't have a problem working 8 hours a day, but my call days require working round the clock 24 hours shifts, and I'm required to do 4 of those shifts in 1 month. It's horrible. I will never get used to such a life. Like I keep saying, it's not for me. My colleagues know I'm not lazy, but I feel the human body is not designed to work that long. Yeah, there are times when you don't work the whole 24 hours because you have intervals where there are no patients in the emergency unit and it's quiet. Thank God for such days. But there are days when I have left my house, gone to work, and come back home without blinking for a second. And the next 2 days, I had like a terrible headache that was not going anywhere. That was when I understood what lack of sleep. And there was this day I was on call. I think I had worked from 10 a.m. up until 5 a.m. the next day. And I think I saw the last patient at about 5 a.m. or so. It was just a non-stop work day. I went to lie down for a bit and then I got a call from one of the neighboring hospitals. They wanted the files or the last discharge letter of a patient. They needed me to fax it to them. I couldn't log into the system. I could not remember the password. I could not remember the I just was completely blank. That was the day I understood what lack of sleep can do to you. Like I was completely blank and I just couldn't remember what the password was. Like I had to go. I went to the nurses and they're like, oh, we don't have the data to patients. I had to just walk around the hospital trying to find help. And I felt horrible. Like I felt horrible. And that day I had a glimpse of what happens to people with memory loss. I feel the work conditions could be a whole lot better than it is. Like some people work 36 hours in some countries, I have heard, and it's horrible. Medicine is a career you're not allowed to make mistakes. If you do, you're either going to jail or you're losing your license, which you've worked many years to get. So I feel the working conditions, this is me complaining about it here, and I hope someday there is a change because most doctors are so used to it. I remember telling one of the senior doctors, I think this is cruel. It shouldn't, like, medicine is a specialty that you require all your concentration, you require your senses to be active. So if you've overused all these senses, then you tend to make mistakes. And he was like, oh, Lucy, during my time I worked, I think he said 36 hours non-stop. I'm like, it doesn't mean it should get worse with time. So I really, really hope this area changes. And then still under the physical aspect, there are times when as a female, like I know a lot of doctors who suffer from bad period pains, like the menstrual cycle is with serious cramps. And sometimes in the middle of your shift or your call you have serious pain and then you're still required to work through the pain. There are times when I think I'm more sick than the patient in front of me. Like I feel like my body is about to divide in two, but it's 2 a.m., it's 3 a.m. You can't call in sick, it's too late. So you have to walk through the pain. Sometimes you take medications, the medications do not set in, or for some reason they do not work so well. And then you're nauseous, you're just having some kind of dizziness, but you still have to walk through it. There was a day there was a reanimation on the station, and I was having serious pain and I still had to run with the pain. So, ladies, how do you work through such situations and experiences? What do you do when you have to work, you have bad pains, you can't call in sick? What helps? Let's share. And I think most people can relate with this. So these are some of the challenges. The list I think is longer than this, but for now, these are the ones I have talked about today. How do you cope with your own challenges, and what are the challenges you face at your own place of work? I really, really would love to know. One thing that helps me a lot is praying. Like from praying, I get strength. I'm able to continue the journey, and I always feel like I am not alone, you know? And that goes a long way, because I keep saying if not for God, I would have quit medicine a long time ago. Like, okay, at least 2 years ago, I would have quit medicine, but I'm still going. So these are some of the challenges I face as an African doctor, as a female doctor, as whatever doctor, you add your adjectives. At the end of the day, medicine is a challenging profession regardless of location. But I think the most important thing is to find ways of working through these challenges and not letting them destroy you or affect you badly. If you have plans of going into medicine, I would say go into medicine because you are passionate about it, because you really love it, or because you know it's something you really, really would love to do. Go in for the right reasons, else you will quit halfway. I'm not even kidding. If you haven't subscribed and you've watched up until this point, I'm asking myself why. Subscribing is free, so subscribe, like, share, and take care of yourself, take care of your mental health, take care of your physical health, and keep your light shining as usual. Kisses.